Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back joined today with the neurodiverse teacher herself, Dr. Kristen Eccleston. Excited to have her back here today for another amazing show, talking about the work she does, obviously, with education and as a consultant and just helping so many people as an advocate for children, adolescents, even adults. Welcome to the show today. How are you?
I'm great, Jill. Thanks for having me here. I'm excited. I always look forward to speaking with you every week.
Same here. You got an amazing personality, clearly a lot of education and knowledge, and you're just a helpful person. And you're a mom. You got a lot on your plate. For those that may not know anything about you, would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself? And of course, tell us how we can reach you.
Absolutely. So start with the easy thing. The easiest way to reach me is my website, which is www.theneurodiverseteacher.com. And then a little bit about me is I am a former special education teacher who became an education consultant, but my focus is on mental health and neurodiversity engagement, both in the education and in the corporate space. And what that means is just trying to find the right support services for students who are in need of mental health support while they're in school, and then also trying to change the landscape of what the education or workplace looks like as far as neurodiversity goes.
Beautiful. And by the way, it's the neurodiverseteacher.com. Just want to point out you're in the DC area, but you're, as an education consultant, you're working with people all over the world, globally, right?
Yes. So I work with families nationwide. So, I mean, I'm based in that DC area, but I have clients in Arizona and California. So that's, I guess, the silver lining of the pandemic is Zoom has opened us up to be able to work with people. And then I also work with people in other countries, Netherlands, Australia, looking at what neurodiversity, looking at what school avoidance looks like, because this is a global issue. It is not just an issue here in the States. It is a global issue. And I think the more people who can be focused and collaborate together, the better off we are in hopefully making an impact and a difference.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So for today, what did you have in mind for us?
Sure. So I thought we could talk a little bit about growth mindset, and people who have been following along might go, wait. We've been talking about mental health. We've been talking about neurodiversity. Why all of a sudden are we throwing growth mindset in there? But honestly, growth mindset is what I use a lot when I am working in the corporate space, especially when I'm trying to help HR leaders understand neurodiversity. Because to me, growth mindset is that idea of being able to take in other perspectives, understand other perspectives. And I like to dive in and talk a lot about growth mindset because I often think that we have grown up in this kind of cultural idea that if we change our mind, if we see anything differently than we originally saw it, that we become hypocritical. When in reality, changing your mind is a really, really good thing. But I think there's a lot of fine lines that exist in what people understand to be a growth mindset. And I thought that might be something we could dive into a little bit today and talk a little bit more about.
Absolutely. Please, let's get started. Thank you.
Absolutely. So with a growth mindset, the first thing I want people to know is there are a lot of opportunities right now for it. I don't know about you. I tend to be that TikTok doom scroller who loves to go through TikTok, and a lot of opinions are out there right now. And it doesn't matter. I mean, pick a topic, any topic. There's a lot of opinions out there. And I think one of the things that we have somehow lost sight of, and it doesn't matter where your opinions land, and that's not what growth mindset is. It's not the idea of your opinion has to align one way or the other. It's no matter where your opinion lands, are you open to hearing other perspectives? Or are you closed to other perspectives? And that's that difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. But where I think people get caught up is I think they're afraid that if you allow yourself to listen to somebody else's perspective or you hear somebody else's perspective, that somehow it is going against your core values or your ideals. And if they don't align, you have to get very defensive. Because I don't know about you, Jill, but that's one thing I have noticed a lot right now. And it doesn't matter what the topic is. If you want to go politics, religion, gender, whatever it is, I feel like we've all gotten to this point that if your idea or your perspective does not align with mine, automatically a wall goes up and we become defensive and we call names. And I think that's on both sides of the fence. So it doesn't matter where you land. I think everybody is guilty of it right now. And one of the biggest things that you have to do in order to really improve upon that emotional intelligence, which is a big thing, especially in corporate spaces, and that growth mindset is you don't have to change my mind. I can listen to you. I can listen to your opinion, and it doesn't have to change my mind, but maybe it does. And that's okay. Maybe you're going to offer me an idea or perspective that I had never thought about before. And I'm going to go have this aha that goes, wow, I hadn't realized that, or I hadn't thought of it that way.
Wow.
And if that happens and it changes your mind, that's okay. You're not a hypocrite. There's nothing wrong with you. If anything, it's called transformational learning. And Jack Mezirow, who's one of my favorite learning theorists, that was his learning theory, is transformational learning. It's this idea that we always have a knowledge gap, right? Like our knowledge is here. This is the height of our knowledge. But when we allow new information to come in and essentially change our ideas or perspectives, then we're allowing our knowledge to grow. We don't know what we don't know, right? This is what we know. This is everything that we don't know is up here. But when we allow new perspectives and aha moments to come in, we're expanding our knowledge. It's that transformational knowledge. But I am not obligated to change my mind either. I could listen to your perspective. I can listen to your ideas and I can take it in. And at the end of whatever conversation we're having, I can still go, I heard what you said. I understand your perspective. I see your experience, but I still feel this way, or this is still what my ideas are. And that's okay too. But I think we have lost this idea of opening ourselves for even just the idea of this transformation or the idea of taking in somebody else's perspective. It's like we've become too scared to hear anybody else's perspectives or ideas. It's this defense. It's this wall that goes up. But being able to listen to somebody, take in their views, take in their perspectives is a major skill and an important skill to have, because it might provide you with that aha moment, but it might not. And either way is okay. It doesn't obligate you to change your mind. You don't have to change your values or your ideas. But could you imagine if maybe somebody did introduce something to you that you hadn't thought of before, and it does become life-changing, or it does give you a new perspective, or it does expand your mind or your knowledge in some way? That's what growth mindset is all about. Are you at least willing to sit down and have an open-minded conversation with somebody and hear their perspective and truly understand where they're coming from, versus just putting up that wall and immediately shutting down any new concept or idea?
Interesting. Yeah, you have to. I mean, I would love for everyone to be so open and so, but we should. Why not? Everyone's opinion matters. Everyone counts. You don't have to agree with someone. But that's also where some other issues come in, and people can't handle that. If someone doesn't agree with me, and especially with politics, which I'm not big into politics, it's like, I can't be your friend because you're a Republican, you're a Democrat. And it's like such closed mindset.
And that's crazy to me. I'm going to tell you a true story. I was talking to somebody one time and they were telling me about, they had this great relationship with their neighbor. They loved their neighbor. And then all of a sudden one day in conversation with their neighbor, I guess politics came up. And the politics of their neighbor did not align with their personal politics. And as they're telling me the story, they're like, yeah, I don't trust them now. And I don't, I can't listen to anything they say. And I'm thinking to myself, that's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that you loved this person, you had a great relationship with this person, but as soon as this person's ideas or ideologies or opinions didn't align with yours, all of a sudden that created this barrier of lack of trust. But other than their political views, what had they done to make you not trust them? What had they done to make you feel like they weren't a good neighbor? Nothing. You had had a great relationship with them. But now all of a sudden, because their opinions didn't align with yours, you wanted to cut them out. And I have to say, I mean, I have opinions and I have views and I have things that are strong. Everyone does. And that's okay. They're called personal biases. Everybody has personal biases. There's nothing negative about personal biases. Personal biases are based off what your life experience has been since birth all the way through the present moment.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about listening to other people is other people have had other life experiences that are different than yours. And that's what allows you to have those aha moments, because maybe you hadn't been in a position or experienced something the same way the other person did. And now you can go, oh, I hadn't thought of it from that viewpoint or that perspective. The only time personal biases become an issue is if you don't allow for those conversations of people to share their views, their opinions, and their experiences with you. But they can be really, really valuable when you open yourself up to it. But shutting yourself down to being able to have conversations with people who have different opinions, to me, is actually something that's really sad. I love hearing people who maybe align differently or have other opinions than me, because I'm always looking for that aha moment. I'm always looking for that I hadn't thought of it that way. If
Mhm.
anything, I look at it as a positive when somebody doesn't always agree with me, because I want to hear their perspective. I want to maybe have my mind changed, because I'm
Shifted and
hoping to,
learned
yeah.
something new. Not
But
everyone's as
we,
open as you and I, but yes, I'm the same way.
and you're right, not everybody is as open. And the sad thing is I think it's because we feel like if we're not open, somehow it will start to betray our values, or somehow it will start to make us seem hypocritical in some sense. When in reality, that's not the case. That is not what is happening. If anything, we're going back to Jack Mesro, you are transforming your learning and your understanding. And that's why I start with growth mindset a lot when I'm working with individuals in that corporate space, is because that's how I help leaders start to understand individuals who are neurodiverse. That oftentimes it's a perspective shift. Does not necessarily have to be like that political landscape,
Yeah.
but it can just
Hmm.
be how you view being productive at work, or how you like to get your work done versus how people think you should be getting your work done, or how
Hmm.
you go about your day or structure your day. Somebody who's neurodiverse might have different ideas of how to do that than somebody who is neurotypical. And typically in the workplace, as an education, there's kind of this pre-scripted way of how we're supposed to get things done, or what
Yeah.
productivity looks like. And that's why growth mindset is so important to especially leaders, is to understand that other perspectives doesn't necessarily break down a system. Sometimes it can improve a system. Sometimes it can
True.
give you a new perspective or a new way to look at things. And so growth mindset and understanding growth mindset is so significantly important in a workplace, because that is what helps you to understand your employees better, and ultimately allow your employees to feel more valued and engaged in the workplace.
Beautifully said. And by the way, it's about halfway time. Remind us how we can reach you, please.
Absolutely. So please, my website is the easiest way to find me, www.theneurodiverseteacher.com. On there, my email address is on there, all my socials. My socials are pretty easy. TikTok and Instagram are the same thing. It's at the.neurodiverse.teacher.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let's continue the conversation about open-mindedness for sure. And yeah, you got to be open to people's opinions for sure. It's just, yeah. Have you ever come across and worked with people that are just very stubborn and the mindset is small? Can you help someone expand that?
Absolutely. And you can, because a lot of it goes back to that personal bias piece that I
Hmm.
talked about. And I think a lot of people's personal biases, some of it is rooted in just life experience.
Hmm.
Some of it is what I like to call generational trauma. These ideas that, if you came from a family where it was very important what people thought about you or how people viewed you, and that was kind of ingrained into you,
Then, yeah.
then you kind of have to start to recognize that some of those things were things that were passed down to you, or ideologies that were inflicted upon you, or of a communication skill. If you came from an abusive family, or, sometimes it doesn't even have to be that your parents
Yeah.
were. If you had grandparents or great grandparents who were kind of verbally or mentally abusive, sometimes that can get passed down in parenting. And then that can become a part of your personality 3, 4 generations later. And sometimes having to recognize some of these things, A, is very
Yeah.
difficult, but B, when you can recognize them, can help you within that growth mindset. It's also something that directly relates to like an emotional IQ. And emotional IQ is one of those, I like to call one of those trending terms
Hmm.
that tend to be getting more leeway or more action or notability as of recently, because emotional intelligence is really this concept of being able to be empathetic with people. There's this empathy and there's this sympathy aspect. And sympathy is this ability to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Jill, that you seem like you're going through a lot, versus that empathy of being like,
I
Jill, I
feel.
know you're going through a lot. Like, I
Yeah.
have had to do that too. Like, I know what that feels. And like, whatever you need, I will
I'm
give it to
there.
you.
I got you. Yep.
Yes.
Hmm.
And those are two very different things. And that's another reason why growth mindset is so important with emotional IQ, because the more stories or life experience you have, that allows you to be more empathetic. But when you can take in other people's life stories too, and experiences and viewpoints, and really understand where their viewpoints are coming from, it also allows you to be more empathetic, because now you have a deeper understanding of where people are coming from, versus just that sympathetic level. Now you can really be more empathetic, so that when somebody who, an employee comes to you and says, hey, this is what's going on in my life, or this is what's dealing, or this is what I need at work, you have a higher level of empathy towards them, because you have allowed yourself to have more meaningful and deeper conversations with people and expanded upon that growth mindset.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. My goodness. And by the way, just want to point out you're working worldwide, Dr. Kristen Eccleston. If you are just tuning in, the neurodiverse teacher, we just want to let you know we're here live with her today, talking about all the work she does with families, adolescents, and again, internationally, mostly nationally, but worldwide in a sense, because she is available in the DC area in person, but of course, nationwide with all her services. And by the way, some amazing accolades, right? You've spoken. I mean, what would you say your proudest achievement is with your work, if you don't mind me just digressing for a sec?
Oh no, that's a great one. I have to say my proudest achievement with my work is 8 years ago, I had the opportunity to build a program for a school district, specifically for students with mental health needs. And this was way before the pandemic. So it was kind of at the forefront of talking about youth mental health. And I have to say, I don't know if just the stars aligned, or I had the most amazing team in the entire world, but it ended up being a very successful program that 8 years later is still in existence, now has multiple locations. Yay. And it was a high school program specifically for students with mental health needs. And these are students now who had been school avoidant, who go to school every day, who are now college bound. So I think that is probably one of my most things that I'm proud of within my career. And then I'm really excited that next week I will be in Arizona giving a TED Talk talking about neurodiversity in the education setting. So I'm really excited about that coming up next week as well.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Busy woman. How do you do it all with the kids?
I think it's my own ADHD.
Okay.
It's my own, but luckily my kids will be on spring break next week. And so their spring break started today.
Yeah,
but
ours did yesterday in New York.
Their full spring break, and luckily grandma and grandpa are going to take them for a few days, and my husband and I will go out to Arizona, and he'll be my cheerleader in the audience for me.
Amazing. Awesome. Good to know. Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
Sorry, back to the topic. I just digressed, but that's awesome.
Thank you. No, I have been very fortunate in my career, and I'm very passionate about what I do, because, and I mean, for those who have listened and have been following along on our journey, there's a lot of needs out there for individuals who are neurodiverse with mental health. Neurodiverse and mental health are not mutually exclusive, but they often go hand in hand. Usually people who are neurodiverse suffer from anxiety and depression at much larger rates. And that links back to what we're talking about today too, with growth mindset, because those are things to understand when you have individuals who are neurodiverse. That it's important to understand that mental health can be a factor with those employees. And so being mindful of making sure that we're not burning people out, because I will say, as an individual who's ADHD and somebody who has dealt with burnout before, I did about 2.5 years ago, I dealt with burnout pretty significantly. And I was one of those people who always just equated it to stress. It's just stress right now. Things will get better, and not recognizing that these were signs of burnout. As employers, it's really important to keep in mind that if you have neurodiverse employees, especially individuals who are ADHD, they are going to probably burn themselves out, because they do work at this hyper-focused, crazy pace. And they're the kind of people who can get 40 hours of work done in an 8-hour time period. And we have to be mindful of their mental health.
True. Oh my goodness. All right. Thank you so much. We still have, oh my gosh, 7 minutes left in the show. Continue. What else did you, you're coughing. I have to do it all the time. I hit the mute button.
Sorry, that's what I was like,
go. It's okay. Take your time. Take a sip of water, tea, whatever you got. I'm out of coffee. Shoot. What else about you do you think is important for us to know?
I think it's important to know too, if you're somebody who's been following along and you've been listening, and you're even contemplating either as a K through 12 individual who's like, hey, we're starting to recognize that mental health
Mhm.
is significant. And I will put this out there, and I realize I'm bouncing around like crazy today too, but I feel like
Okay.
just so many good topics are coming into my mind as we're talking about all these things. Um, in July, the White House put out a press release talking about youth mental health needs.
Okay.
And one of the biggest things that they were doing was going to be talking about putting in social workers and psychologists. And I can tell you, one of the biggest school districts in this country has a 40% deficit in school psychologists right now. So it really shows that there are some significant needs out there. And so if you're a K through 12 person who's like, what am I going to be doing to
Yeah.
address mental health needs for these students? I got you. I'm passionate about it. I've done it. It's proven. I help school districts save millions of dollars every year in private placement funding because I can help you create those types of programs that keep kids in your districts and help them become successful. If you're an employer who is dealing with quitting on a regular basis, or just feeling like your employees are leaving or not feeling engaged, there's probably a good chance you have a lot of neurodiverse individuals working for you.
Yeah.
And I can help you with understanding how that brain functions, how to maximize the potential of each of your employees, and have a work environment that people feel valued and engaged in. And I do this not just from, a business standpoint, but as somebody who's neurodiverse themselves. I'm very passionate about these things. I know what it feels like firsthand. I've watched students firsthand go from not being successful to being successful. I've watched employees go from not feeling valued to feeling super engaged and happy in their workplace. So there's so much that can be done, I think, to make a much more productive environment in education
Mhm.
settings and workplace settings. But so much of it has to do with that growth mindset and being willing to cast aside maybe what your preconceived notions are, or how you think things should operate, or what
Should
things should look
be.
like,
Mhm.
and take a minute to open up to some new perspectives, some new ideas, and go, hey, let's try something new and let's see how this turns out.
Awesome. Yay. I love your positivity and energy, and clearly mindset is something huge. As a mom, a mindset. Now, you're able to teach your kids this? I mean, because you're working with children of all ages. I'm just asking about your own children, right? Do they, know the value of mindset? Do you teach that? Do you, in gratitude? I mean, those simple techniques that really can work in any day life situations.
I do try and talk with my children about this stuff on a regular basis. I do have like a woo-woo side of me too. I am like a certified yoga instructor, a certified Reiki person. And a lot of that had to do when I was
I
building
love
that
that.
program for students. I wanted to have a more holistic kind of
Mhm.
approach to it. We ended up developing its own PE class, and there had a lot of yoga elements in it. And I didn't feel like I could be knowledgeable in developing a curriculum unless I
Yeah.
had that skill set.
Wow.
And so I ended up getting those two certifications, but I use that with my children. Like my daughter has ADHD, she deals with anxiety. And so she knows, like when I say to her, all right, Reiki breathing, she knows exactly what that means. And that just means like taking deep breaths and resetting and taking a moment. So I try to use a lot of these strategies and skills with my children as well. And because it's beneficial to all kids. And I mean, I used to try and teach this to students as well too, what deep breathing can do for you, what mindset can do for you, how to change things up so that you feel more empowered. All of those things are important skills.
Gosh, well, thank you so much for being here, for elaborating and joining us. And remind us again of how we can reach out to you directly, please.
Absolutely. So please visit me on my website, www.theneurodiverseteacher.com. On there, you can find every which way to get a hold of me, email, social media, everything. But that is probably the best way to start.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here, and looking
Same
forward
here.
to the next time we get to connect again. Thank you. Happy Passover, happy Easter, happy week off for the kids. I'm sure you'll be working, right?
Always.
Exactly. Same here. We'll have a fantastic day. Pleasure seeing you,
You
and
too.
looking forward to the next time we speak. Goodbye, everyone. See you soon.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.